let's talk about the state hook. And this is the most common, most important hook out of all of them. And if we check out the documentation, we see that the useState is a hook. We call it inside a function component to add some local state to it. So this is exactly what we need. So we need now the useState hook to replicate whatever we did in the constructor here to create the state. So the way we do that is a little tricky, so hang with me here and then I'll explain exactly what's happening. We first declare a constant, and in here we'll do array destructuring. That is, the useState hook is going to return for us two things. One is the robots. Remember, this is part of our state. And the second thing is the function that changes this robots. And usually the standard naming convention is to say set with the name of whatever the state that we're changing is. So we'll say set robots. So const robots is the state now, and set robots is the function that changes this state. So we're going to say equals useState, which we've imported from here. And then in the useState, we give it the initial state. So what's the initial state of robots? Well, right over here, it's an empty array. So we just give it an empty array. And again, this is a bit of a magic that's happening with React. This idea of hooks isn't a JavaScript context. It doesn't really exist in the JavaScript world. Hooks are very React specific, so there is a bit of magic that's happening. In this case, we just need to understand that useState returns for us just by doing this. It's going to return for us, one, a piece of state, and second, the function that changes that state. So we can change or name these variables whatever we want to describe our state. So that's our first piece of state. And then the next one is the search field. So once again, I'll say const. And what should we put here? Well, the search field. And then the function that changes the search field. So again, using the standard, we'll do set search field is going to equal useState. And what is the initial state? Well, the initial state is an empty string. There you go. That's it. We've just recreated this part, except now our function has state. It has the robots state and it has the search field state. And you'll also notice that it's not in one big state. Instead, we've sliced things. So we have one state for robots and one state for search field, and we keep them separate. Now, this initial state can be anything you want. You see here how this .state was an object, and if we wanted to, we could make this into an object, but this is completely up to you and what state you want to have in your app. Now, another thing that tricks a lot of beginners is this array destructuring, which is a new JavaScript feature. Essentially, what this allows us to do is it allows us to name our state whatever we want. So even though useState returns for us a piece of state, which will be an empty array initially, and a function to change that state, by using array destructuring, we can customize our code and name it whatever we want instead of the useState library that React gives us, naming it in one way that everybody has to use. This is just simple array destructuring to name our variables. Now that we have a piece of state, we'll forget about the component did mount for now. We're going to go to the on search change event. And we see here that instead of doing on search change, what we'll do is remove this .setState because we're no longer in a class. And instead, to change the search field, all we need to do is say set search field. So this .setState changes to set search field. And this search field can be changed. So in this case, because we just give it exactly what the change needs to be, we can just remove the object here and just say event.target.value is going to set the search field. So we got rid of a this, And then what else do we have here? This .state here we no longer need because, again, we don't have a state object. Each robots and search field is already here. So we can just remove this entire line because we already have access to robots and search field. And then if we go here, robots.filter, we have that. Any more of this around here? No, everything should be good. Let's save. We see that set robots is assigned a value, but never used. And that is because we haven't implemented the component didMount yet. But let's have a look. If I go back to our app, it's loading because we haven't fetched anything. But if I open up the developer tools and console, and let's just log out over here. Let's just do console.log robots and then search field. If I save and go back, we see that we have an array and an empty string. So we have state, we've created state inside of our function using the useState hook that allowed us to finally do exactly what we did with a class component, but in a functional way. Next step is to add the lifecycle hooks. Again, remember what hooks are. Hook is a special function that lets you hook into React feature. We've hooked in to the state feature of React so that we can create state. The next part is to hook in to the lifecycle events that we got with classes, but this time within a function. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.